10 things about Harry Potter that make no sense. It's been a long time since the Harry Potter movies were released, and even longer since the books were written. But you might have realized that there were a few details that didn't make any sense, even in such a weird, magical world. The world is richly detailed, fantastically magical, and has a lot for us to take in. However, with the universe being as big as it is, there are bound to be a few mistakes and slip-ups. So today, we're going to take a look at the entire plot and go over 10 things about Harry Potter that don't make sense. Please, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy, and subscribe because you could get a shout out if you do. But let's get into the list. Within the 6th book and movie, we're introduced to the concept of the unbreakable vow. With Bellatrix being unconvinced that Snape is actually on their side, she makes him take an unbreakable vow with Narcissa. If you didn't already know, if you try to break an unbreakable vow, you will lose your life. So it's basically a promise that you'll have to keep no matter what. Given the nature of this spell, it's pretty astonishing that villains within the series, such as Voldemort, never use the unbreakable vow with their followers. Voldemort could have easily made each of his Death Eaters take an unbreakable vow, which meant that if they went against him, they would die. It seems pretty obvious, to be honest, but he, or any other villain, never did this. Voldemort knew that he had undying loyalty from Bellatrix, but there were other people, like Wormtail, that he clearly didn't trust. So it would have made so much sense for him to make them take an unbreakable vow.
Thank you, Master. The other arm, Wormtail.
Sirius Black and Bellatrix were sentenced to life in Azkaban for committing crimes in the name of Voldemort. Bellatrix was 100% guilty and should have been locked away, but Sirius was falsely accused. He ended up being inside of Azkaban's walls for 12 years, which is just so wrong, seeing as though he didn't do anything. However, there is something that these two characters have in common, and it's the fact that they somehow got their wands back after they escaped. Prisoners inside of Azkaban are not allowed to keep their wands after being sentenced and imprisoned, so this is something that really makes no sense. Somehow Sirius and Bellatrix both end up with their wands back. We were never given any kind of explanation as to how they got their old wands back, apart from the fact that they need them for plot purposes.
You filthy half-blood!
One of the things that give the wizarding world its charm is that it's something completely different to what we know. Wizards and witches alike can travel through fireplaces, play sports on a broomback, and so many other bizarre things. These things that they can do are totally different from that of the Muggle world, and they are completely cut off from anybody who doesn't do magic. After the Salute to Secrecy went into place, the Wizarding Society became pretty isolated. But you've got to admit that there are some traditions that wizards hold on to that don't make any sense, and they really just make their lives harder for themselves. For example, using a quill and parchment is great and all, but it must have been annoying for students to dip their quill 10,000 times to write an essay. Some aspects of the modern Muggle world have clearly trickled into the wizarding world, like the radio, so the resistance with keeping up with these things to make life difficult doesn't make any sense. One thing that really bugs a lot of people is the fact that McGonagall gave Hermione Granger the ability to control time using a time turner. Seriously, who gives a teenager the ability to control time? It's very obvious from the moment that Hermione set foot on the Hogwarts Express that she was going to be one of the smartest people in the school. It was so obvious to the Hogwarts professors that she was exceptional that they gave her the ability to control time so that she could go to extra classes. But why? No matter how curious or talented you think a 13-year-old girl is, you shouldn't give her the ability to go backwards and forwards in time. It literally makes no sense. Even the adults didn't have time turners.
This is a time turner, Harry. McGonagall gave it to me first term. This is how I've been getting to my lessons all year.
Being sorted into a house is an important part of the journey of every Hogwarts student. The fate of each student is put down to a hat being placed on their heads, and the hat can see into the minds of the students to look at what they're really like, but it apparently also takes personal preferences into account as well before deciding which house each student belongs to. But there always seems to be an even number of students in each house, which doesn't seem to hold up mathematically. Why are there always perfectly even numbers of obnoxious, clever, and brave 11-year-olds in each Hogwarts class? I don't think the Sorting Hat really takes personal preference into account, and it's actually strictly obsessed with symmetry. It just doesn't seem likely that there's always exactly the same number of each character trait for each house, especially since they're sorting out 11-year-old kids who are just starting to figure out who they are.
Better be Gryffindor!
During the end of the Deathly Hallows Part 2, Harry Potter is finally set against Voldemort, once and for all. Tensions are very high as Voldemort spends a lot of time backhanding Harry instead of doing what he's been wanting to do for the past 16 years. Harry begins to talk to Voldemort and says, "Let's finish this the way it started, together." At the moment, he locked his arms around Voldemort's neck and jumped off the edge. Not only is this the farthest thing from what actually happened in the book, it's the strangest creative choice ever. Honestly, why did Harry Potter jump into the air hundreds of feet up? And why did the two of them go flying through the castle and over the grounds while clawing at each other's faces? No one will ever know, I guess. When we're first introduced to Hagrid, he describes himself as keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts. Later on, when Harry visits Gringotts Bank for the first time, it's very important that Hagrid has a key to Harry's vault. Something that's never explained to us is why wizards need to use keys in the first place. It seems a bit silly considering the fact that they use magic all the time. Why didn't they just cast a spell to unlock doors? Having any physical key makes no sense. How do you know you're the only one that has a key? Someone could have easily duplicated it with the wave of a wand, right?
Not every day your young man turns 11 now, is it? Hey?
The School of Hogwarts doesn't do the best job of preparing students for life after Hogwarts. In between all the magical classes, you would think that they would teach students something like math skills. They didn't even get taught basic reading skills from what we know. It's honestly a miracle that any kid that shows up at Hogwarts has the reading level necessary to do their homework.
You're not going to use magic.
You will be learning about defensive spells in a secure, risk-free way.
Wizards and witches have their own currency. Gold galleons, silver sickles, and bronze knuts. Each galleon is worth 17 sickles, and each sickle is worth 29 knuts. But this isn't the part that doesn't make any sense. What is confusing is how much things cost in the Potter world. When Harry buys his wand, a really important magical item that allows him to control his magic, it costs him 7 galleons. This might seem correct and everything until you take into account what that would actually be worth in Muggle money. Some dedicated fans have figured out what the conversion would be from galleons to British pounds and American dollars. A galleon is equal to about $6.14, so his wand would have cost him somewhere around $43. That just doesn't make any sense, since wands have special things like phoenix feathers at the core. It should have cost so much more.
It is curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar.
I must admit that there's a lot that doesn't make any sense about Peter Pettigrew, even though he did give us one of the best plot twists ever. One thing people don't understand is why the Weasleys were totally cool with their non-magical, run-of-the-mill garden rat somehow surviving 12 years and still looking as fit as a fiddle. At the beginning of the Prisoner of Azkaban book, when Harry and Ron and Hermione are wandering around getting school supplies, J.K. Rowling dropped a hint. Ron goes to get a tonic for Scabbers because ever since coming back from Egypt, the rat's been looking awful. A shopkeeper pokes Scabbers and wonders how he's still alive, and offers Ron a magical dancing rat instead. This brings up some questions. If other wizards are surprised that Scabbers is still alive, why are the Weasleys not?
Sunshine, daisies, buttermellow. Turn this stupid fat rat yellow.
But there we have it. 10 things about Harry Potter that don't make any sense. Make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy and subscribe with notifications turned on, and we will see you in the next video.